So I just finished watching Severance Season 2, which was just phenomenal. Its continued excellent performances, its uncanny valley approach to office and workplace culture while commentating on both, as well as just the charisma and confidence it has along the way to have all these big questions thrown at you yet still have marching bands show up for no reason, right? It's constantly entertaining and just a remarkable show if you haven't seen it so far. And no spoilers here, it just kept me watching the whole time, mainly due to the intrigue that it constantly provides. Not a single episode goes by where you don't ask, like, what the hell are we doing here? What are these people working on? All while having the subplot of these innies and their plight to not only question the world around them, but to escape it and figure out what the real world has to offer. Now that's on Apple TV, and if you don't have Apple TV, it has some other good stuff on there. So for example, now that Severance is over, I've been watching Silo, which stars Rebecca Ferguson as a girl who, among others, questions her reality and goes as far to sacrifice the life she knows just to discover the truth and escape the world that she's confined to. Interesting. You might see where I'm going here with this, but just as one more, I'm not just a watcher of TV shows, I also read some books, and I just read The Maze Runner for the first time and watched the film as well, which features a group of teenagers who are trapped in a location and question their reality and then try to escape it to go to the real world. So is everything just copying each other? I may be repeating myself, but I'm absolutely not complaining. I love these stories. They tend to be my favorite kind of stories, the ones I'm most intrigued in, and the ones I keep up with. But at the same time, you have to wonder, did all of Hollywood just watch The Truman Show one day and decide to rinse and repeat that formula till the end of time? All of these pieces of media just copying each other for the last 20 years? And while The Truman Show is incredible and in my opinion groundbreaking, I don't think all these pieces of media and TV shows are copying The Truman Show, but I do think they're copying something, and I think they're copying a story that did not come out when Jim Carrey was at the height of his power, but came out decades, centuries, millennia ago. And that story is none other than one that you may have already heard of, and it's often referred to as Plato's allegory of the cave. So Plato's allegory of the cave is very, very simple, and it's a situation set up by none other than the philosopher Plato himself. And the situation is that there are these prisoners that are trapped in a cave. They're bound to the floor, and they're kept complacent while in this cave. Plato specifically calls out these puppets and performances and items that are not placed in front of the prisoners to keep them complacent, but their shadows are from a light somewhere beyond where they cannot see. And in this story, not all the prisoners stay where they are. One actually escapes, and he leaves this cave that all these prisoners are trapped in, and he sees the true light of the sun and the real world, the grass, the leaves, the beauty of nature, all representing what Plato's going for here, which is some sort of allegory for enlightenment, getting out of your rut or your comfort zone and learning the true nature of the world and the beauty it can provide, rather than being complacent with the one presented to you. And already you can see the parallels here between this and the media I just mentioned. So let's take Severance, for example, because I love Severance. Not only do we have imagery representing this cave image that Plato exempts, for example, the painting of Keir taming the tempers, or anywhere where dark shadows are cast upon the wall, like the entrance to Lumen, or the very shadowy underbelly of the Keir Egan home that Dylan has his waffle party in. But there's also many callbacks to the rest of the Plato's allegory as well, such as references to light, how Lumen is a name very similar to the Latin root word of light, or how the offices represent a cave themselves that these innies are prisoners within, while the real world exists above them as they question everything around them. Severance also often uses the color red in place of the sunlight in the Plato's allegory, where you see it not only in the ceiling lights whenever the innies are allowed a musical dance experience, for example, or in the book that Rickon provides them to enlighten them further. But Plato's allegory doesn't just end there. If enough about Severance, let's talk about The Matrix, for example, where the Matrix itself, that everyone's consciousnesses exist in, can be seen as the cave, and the shadows and puppetries along the wall are unlike in Severance, where they might be a waffle party, and here they may be other people or actual projections of real life, or so that these prisoners are told. So those parallels are pretty darn clear, but I didn't actually finish explaining Plato's allegory of the cave to you. You see, Plato's allegory of the cave does not end with one prisoner escaping, seeing the sun, and embracing enlightenment for the first time. No, what happens in Plato's allegory of the cave is that that prisoner, once enlightened and once seeing the real world, he goes back into the cave to help educate, enlighten, and eventually free the other prisoners that are trapped there. So think of Morpheus going back into the Matrix once he escapes to rescue Neo, or Petey from Severance reintegrating and going back into the office to rescue his friend Mark in Severance. Or if anyone remembers the movie Oblivion, think of Morgan Freeman's character. Okay, I remember the movie Oblivion. I like the movie Oblivion. There, I said it. The concepts taken from Plato's allegory of the cave lend themselves very well to fiction, and some of my favorite types of fiction. As we go on a journey of questioning reality with these main characters, the intrigue just happens to follow so seamlessly, and it keeps the audience engaged and hooked as we feel uneasy and want to tune in for another episode or another scene to see what else we can learn about this world the prisoners are presented with. It's also, let's be honest, very easy to advertise. You see a trailer for Don't Worry Darling pop on the TV, and you say, wow, I want to know what's going on, let me go buy a ticket and find out. Now, while that concept does work well in fiction, that doesn't mean the topic isn't often abused. It's not just a get-out-of-jail-free card for an interesting story, it still needs to be done the right way. So take The Maze Runner, for example. When the film came out, everyone loved the first 2 acts. Critics said it fell short on its ending. That's because it was just revealed that people were being experimented on and tested, and these kids that were trapped in this maze were all part of a science experiment to study their brains, which is wholly unsatisfying. We didn't really get any conclusion from that. It doesn't help that the rest of the films weren't that good. You need more meat on your bones than just an experiment going on in the background. You need that conflict of a likable character such as Truman, or further intrigue and a long-time war between Neo and the machines. Or, since we're already talking about philosophy with the allegory of the cave, other philosophical things to chew on, such as how far can work-life balance be really taken, or how comfortable would you be in a machine that presents your ideal world to you while you're abstaining from what's going on outside? How far would you go to risk seeing the real world even though you are aware it is dangerous to you? So when I say that Plato's allegory of the cave and how it echoes throughout fiction is one of my favorite stories to watch and listen to, how does it not get old then? Why am I and many others still not bored of it? Why are we still watching Severance? Credit where credit's due. Severance is the top TV show on Apple TV right now, not just because of the allegory of the cave. It has some wonderful creativity behind it. I'm more curious about why do we still have this through line in fiction of the allegory of the cave? And I think it's because of this. Plato's allegory of the cave was not written for Hollywood. It was written for something completely different, something I touched on earlier. The cave itself is not a plot device. It could be interpreted many different ways, but you can see it as an allegory for many things, such as apathy, laziness, ignorance. And escaping that cave and seeing the real world can be seen as an allegory for learning, or education, or exercise, reading more. The true meaning of Plato's allegory of the cave is to achieve any beneficial thing that can only be attained by abstaining from some comfort. You cannot learn what the true world is like without leaving the Matrix behind. And I think that's why I come back to these stories. Even though they may recycle some plot ideas from other movies, art will continue to inspire art, and we might see the allegory of the cave through line in other pieces of fiction moving forward. I love them because we all have a cave of some sort. It may not be the Matrix. For me, it's scrolling through TikTok or Instagram Reels all the time, right? Preventing me from seeing other films I want to see, going outside, taking a walk, reading books. We all have some sort of established comfort that holds us back from something that deep down we know we want to do or need to do for whatever reason. And movies that follow this allegory of the cave through line are good reminders that we can break away from those things. We can be Neo, we can be Mark S, we can be Truman. Me, you, the audience member, can see yourself in these characters almost better than anyone else, because that's what we relate to, even if we don't realize it in that moment. And just the fact that I can be like Neo by turning off TikTok and opening a book is a pretty incredible fact. Or I could go learn Kung Fu. So what other pieces of media do you tend to see this allegory of the cave through line in? Or what other pieces of philosophy or ideas do you tend to see in media that may repeat themselves but you don't really get tired of? Let me know down in the comments below, and for more movie reviews and discussions like this over a cup of coffee, like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.